For 2 years, a pop-up haunted house attraction opened in October, unofficially called Haunted Hill House. The name was derived from a sign that looked like it had been purchased from Party City, propped up in front of a grassy area designated as a parking lot. That year marked their closure, and it was also the year my friends and I decided to go. I attended with Matt, Michael, and Eddie on a Thursday night. Since we were in college and had Fridays off, we figured it would be quieter than on a weekend. To our surprise, there was no line at the ticket booth. As we made our way to the entrance, we encountered only a short line of about 4 people ahead of us. However, we quickly realized they were only allowing one person in at a time, which we hadn't anticipated. This arrangement only heightened the suspense. We pushed Michael to go first, and I was second to last, right before Eddie. Every few minutes, an attendant would signal for the next person to enter. When Matt went in ahead of me, I began to feel nervous. I hadn't been in a haunted house since I was a child with my family. When it was my turn, a woman in a bloodied costume opened the door and told me to enter. As the door shut behind me, I found myself in a dark building illuminated by small flashing lights. As I walked through, I encountered gruesome props depicting mutilated corpses and other horrific scenes. Actors in terrifying costumes jumped out from corners and holes in the walls, startling me every time. While navigating a dark hallway separating 2 rooms, I felt something brush against me from behind. I let out a short scream, turning to see a tall figure in the darkness. After a moment of relief, I began to laugh, but then the unexpected happened. The actor pushed me down the dark hallway, and I could hardly see anything. I assumed this was part of the attraction and went along with it. I don't remember how long I allowed this actor to guide me through the darkness, but eventually he stopped, and I heard a door close behind me, plunging me into silence. Still thinking this was part of the act, I felt hands grabbing me in a way that felt entirely wrong. I pushed the person away and said, "Get the hell off me, dude." I stood there in the dark saying, "You're going too far, man. You can't touch people like that." I was waiting for the actor to progress me to the next part of the attraction, but nothing happened. Realizing something was off, I took out my phone, even though we had been warned not to use them during the attraction. I turned on the flashlight and discovered I was in a storage room filled with props and janitorial supplies. However, the first thing that caught my attention was a tall man standing 3 or 4 feet away from me. He didn't look like an actor. He was dressed in all black, with a mask covering half his face. I asked, "What are you doing, dude?" He didn't respond, but instead started making gestures as if he were part of a performance. I quickly found the door and left the room, using my phone flashlight to navigate back down the dark hall. When I encountered the next actor, who yelled at me to turn off my flashlight, I explained that I had been violated and assaulted by someone who might not work for the attraction, and I wanted to leave. The actor, likely just a teenager himself, dropped his character and told me to keep walking. I was almost at the exit. I asked where his manager was, and he said I would have to go back to the ticket stand as the manager's office was attached. I hurried through the rest of the haunted house, speed walking, to make it clear I wanted out. A few minutes later, I finally exited and found my friends, who were puzzled by my late arrival. I recounted what had happened, and we headed to the ticket stand to speak with the manager. The worker informed us that the manager was not present that night, but would return the next day. I reported the incident, and she said she would alert the team. I requested a refund, and she returned my $30. The following day, a girl from our college posted on Facebook that she had been sexually assaulted by someone in the same haunted house the night before. It turned out we had nearly identical experiences, though the aggressor had been more physical with her. She pressed charges against the owner for negligence. The attraction staff insisted that the man who assaulted us did not work there, which I believed, but I couldn't understand why they lacked proper security measures to prevent such incidents. This was the first and last time I ever visited a haunted house attraction, a troubling return to haunted houses. Years later, I found myself in Fort Worth, Texas, where a popular haunted house attraction was set to open. A few friends wanted to go, and I thought it might be time to face my fears. For context, I developed PTSD from a troubled childhood, which I'll explain later. It was a weekend, so nobody wanted to go in sober. My friend Noah hosted a pre-game gathering for 6 of us, 3 guys and 2 of their girlfriends. We smoked and drank in his backyard, thinking it would enhance the experience. While pre-gaming, we bought tickets for the attraction online. I rarely smoke weed because it tends to make me paranoid, but that night I decided to give it another try. Surprisingly, I felt good, likely due to the combination of alcohol and weed offsetting my usual negative thoughts. After a while, we called an Uber to the attraction, which was about 20 minutes from Noah's house. Upon arrival, we encountered a half-hour line, as the place was quite busy. I was cross-faded, but still aware of my surroundings. As we entered, I felt a wave of anxiety wash over me. The actors were intense, and I began to realize that getting high had been a mistake. One actor, noticing my fearful demeanor, got in my face, yelling and making noise to scare me. Internally, I was freaking out, but I tried to maintain my composure in front of my friends. The haunted house felt endless, and every jump scare nearly made me lose control. The flashing lights and fog made the experience surreal. We entered a room bathed in an eerie red glow, where a bloodied man in a suit and top hat yelled at us as part of the act. But in the corner stood a man who wasn't dressed as an actor. He was simply staring at me, and as I realized it was my father's face, I let out a primal scream. The room fell silent, and my friends initially laughed, thinking I was joking. But when they saw my panic, one of the girls asked what was wrong. I pointed to the corner saying, "It's my dad." To my horror, he was gone. Confusion spread among my friends, who knew about my troubled past. "There's no one there," one said. The actor asked if I was okay, but I was in the throes of a panic attack, pleading, "I want to leave, I want to leave." Noah accompanied me through a side exit, staying with me while the others finished the attraction. It wasn't cheap, so I didn't want to ruin their night. Outside, Noah reassured me that my dad wasn't there and that I was just hallucinating. To provide some context, my father had abused my siblings and me. I was the oldest and remembered the most. He left us when I was 10, and my close friends knew about this to some extent, so I didn't have to explain it to Noah. When our friends finished, we met at a nearby Wendy's where I tried to eat to calm down. I felt embarrassed, but thankfully my friends didn't judge me. After going home, I fell asleep quickly, likely due to the alcohol and weed. That night I dreamed about the haunted house scene and my father standing in the corner saying, "Wake up, Charlie." When I woke, I found my father towering over my bed, his eyes wide open. It was a grotesque, towering version of him, contorting in an impossible way. It took a moment for me to process what I was seeing before I screamed again. My mom rushed in and turned on the lights, and the apparition vanished. I was terrified, crying to my mom that I saw Dad. It was one of the most traumatic nights of my life. I no longer touched weed or any substances aside from light alcohol, and I vowed never to visit a haunted house again. A disturbing experience while working at a haunted house. During COVID, I thought it would be fun to work at a local haunted house attraction. My friend Marissa was already employed there and informed me they were looking for new actors. She helped me secure a job after I met with the owner. The attraction included multiple sections, 3 haunted houses and a haunted corn maze. On my first day, a supervisor named Jeremiah briefed me on my role as a damsel in distress. I would be tied to a wooden post in the corn maze, yelling for help as guests walked by. We were instructed that guests should not touch any actors, so I wouldn't actually be untied. Before opening time, Jeremiah walked me to my post. I was surprised to learn I would be genuinely tied up, not just pretending. I asked about bathroom breaks, and he assured me there would be short breaks between sessions. He also mentioned another supervisor would be nearby if I needed anything, which eased my anxiety. Once he left, I was alone, surrounded by sound effects and eerie ambiance echoing through the cornfield. A little air horn signaled the attraction's opening, and I began my performance, screaming and pretending to cry for help. Some guests played along, and I improvised my responses. Wearing face masks due to COVID made it difficult to read people's expressions. After a few minutes, I noticed 2 male guests in their 30s walk past without saying a word. One of them slowed,